Can you talk about how to create real moments with a character, help the audience develop a connection with them, even if they're not a likable character?
Well, I take issue with the word likable, because likable is the death knell of filmmaking, because everybody writes characters and then the studio says, make them more likable. But likable isn't really necessarily interesting. What you want is you want relatable. You want somebody to be relatable. You want to tell the truth about people. If you tell the truth about people, people will relate to them. They'll see themselves or their loved ones or their family in those characters, and they will attach to those characters. But when characters are negative because some writer thinks it's edgier to have somebody be negative, what they're really doing is they're playing negative actions. And a negative action is okay for drama or soap operas, but comedy requires positive actions. By negative action, I don't mean something where somebody's being negative, but a negative action is doing something that doesn't help the character. Taking an action that doesn't help the character, doesn't move the character closer to what they want, what wins for them. You mentioned, What About Bob? What About Bob is perfect because all Richard Dreyfuss does in the first 2/3 of the movie is complain. He never tries to solve the problem. Once Bob shows up, he doesn't try to do anything but complain about it. He doesn't try to outthink him. He doesn't try to fight fire with fire, or you win more things with honey than with vinegar. It's just always a complaint. And there's a big difference between complaint and comedy, even though they start with the same first three letters. In comedy, people blithely, haphazardly, unconsciously, unknowingly try to do what they think they need to do in order to make their lives work. But sometimes you'll have a character who does something that isn't making their lives work, and they're being nasty just because somebody, a director or a writer or an actor, thinks nasty is edgy. But positive action is like Jack Nicholson in As Good as It Gets. Jack Nicholson is the most foul-mouthed or insulting person in the world, but you love him because he's not doing it to hurt other people. He's doing it to help himself. Positive means not everything with a smile. Positive means you're doing it to further your own ends. You can also think of it as selfish action. So when in his editor's office, the receptionist goes, oh, please stop. Could you tell me, I just want to talk to you. And he says, why is that? Because you know how I feel like in here? And she touches her head and her heart. And he goes, oh my God. And she says, oh, no. How do you write women so well? And he just turns with a great smile and says, I think of a man and take away reason and accountability. And it's everybody laughs. Women laugh, even though it seems, on the surface, it's a misogynistic thing to say, because he's not doing it to be mean. His purpose isn't to be mean. His purpose is to help himself, to get himself out of what to him is an awkward social situation, which is why in the trip down south, I guess, with Greg Kinnear and Helen Hunt, he is always insulting Greg Kinnear by terms like fudge packer and all this, not because he's trying to hurt him. He's actually trying to figure out a way to have a nice trip with them. It's positive action. So you want the character to be relatable. You want them to be interesting. You want them to be recognizable. Recognizable as a human being that you recognize yourself in, or you recognize people that you know in them, as opposed to, we know people who are negative. But to think that somebody's just going to be negative all the time is a stereotype. It's two-dimensional. Another way to make a character likable or relatable is you give them an emotional moment that is something that is how you would approach that moment. So, as Blake Snyder says, save the cat. You don't have to save the cat. You could just have a human feeling. Just be somebody. Stop trying to be funny for a second and be a human being with all its flaws and idiosyncrasies and idiocies. And if I see that on screen, I'll go, okay, I like that. In The Way Back. Okay, Sam Rockwell plays this clever, funny, wonderful, the guy you wish was the head counselor at your summer camp. And what makes him relatable is that he's also kind. That he isn't just a jerk, he's kind. So he's cool and kind. Oh my God, I wish I had an older brother like that. So of course you start to root for him. But you also root for the kid in The Way Back because he's having a terrible summer with his terrible mom's boyfriend. And you relate to that. I remember when I was a kid and I had a terrible summer. Didn't we all? So you just you tell the truth about human beings. If you tell the truth, comedy will happen, relatability will happen, recognition will happen.